again, we are back, season three, episode four, and we have these questions that you guys have sent in and want to get our take on them. So we're gonna go right with it. And of course, as always, my host, Rain Congreo.
Hello,
Welcome.
hello, hello. Thank you. Thank you.
How you been?
Tired. How have you been?
Ah, I've been great.
That's good to hear.
And
Always.
we got these topics, and always I'm gonna let you go first because you always set the tone. And the first question is, who are your relationship role models?
Hmm.
Right?
My relationship role models. I mean, I probably have to go old school with my grandparents, um, my aunts and uncles. Growing up as an only child, I stayed with my grandmother a lot. And so I kind of got to see what marriage was really about. And, we're talking my cousin literally that just passed away less than a year ago, 60 years of marriage. Um, I have a good friend of mine who has worked for me and been there for me. Um, Her and her husband been married, I want to say 40 years now. They got married young, so they've been married quite a long time now.
Wow.
And I look and to me, those are my role models. And the reason I say that is because I saw the trials, I saw the tribulation, and they came through it, you know. And people, really don't understand that a marriage is not just happily ever after. When you first settle into marriage is when you have to first go through that storm and how you come out of that storm. And then that's when you look at each other and say, you know what, we did it together and we can continue to do this over and over again. And so that's what I've seen from my friends. That's what I've seen from my aunts, my uncles, and I've seen the playfulness. And I've actually interviewed some of them and saying, what keeps you together? And they basically said open communication. No matter how hard it is to have some of those conversations, you have to, and you have to be in a safe place to be able to do it. So there's no judgment or anything like that, but you're able to have those hard conversations with each other and figure out a way to get through it, you know.
Hmm.
And you're not really, you make sure you're not putting the other person down, and it's not like you did this, you did this, you did this. Basically, we have to take responsibility for our own feelings. So, I could say, Bryson, um, I felt hurt because of this action, which takes me not blaming you, but puts the onus back on me because it's actually my feeling. I can only let you do something to me that I allow you to do. Right. So if I tell you that and I tell you that in a way, you're probably going to be a little bit more understanding and say, oh, I didn't mean to do that or this or that, the other. But I think it's really in the communication. I think some people lose the fact of they were playful when they were dating and then they got married and then all of a sudden, granted life happens, we forget about each other. We then have kids that we have to take care of. But I think what I've really learned the most is they would have date nights, which is interesting, to see your grandparents and your aunts and uncles really have date night. I remember they would all get together, on a monthly basis. And whether it was playing cards or shooting pool or going camping or going to a party, whatever it was, my family was so tight knit, they did it together and they had fun. And so growing up, I've only known close knit family because that's how it was for me. And so it was harder when I, married before and I didn't see that because I'm like, I thought families were always supposed to be this way and it wasn't. So I learned a lot from that and I still mimic that to this day and will always hold that because I think that's what makes marriages work. What about you?
For me, I'm gonna have to say my parents. 54 years married, and I mean, watching that through the good, the tough times, you realize that it's work.
Mhm. Mhm.
It's not all like it was when you were dating or none of that courting stuff. I mean, it is work. It is times that you would just wake up and go, like, and but at the end of the day, it's like a rubber band. You have to come back to what brought you there.
Mhm.
And I think a lot of times if you lose sight of that, the rubber band will snap. Um, but again, relationships are not just marriage. You can have a long, outstanding relationship with someone and not be married to them
Yeah.
and share all the values and share all the, you're just not married to each other.
Mhm.
So I don't want this to be just about, well, because I've learned that too. Uh, I've been able to be on both sides of the coin and, to be married and then not married. And then, you know,
Mhm.
you learn more about yourself too. But then you also realize the biggest thing I would say that I've learned from the role models that I have is always setting boundaries. Always going back to basics, right? It's just like anything else you do. Things are going great, you start getting away from it, and then you fall. And you want to go back to, "Well, why is this happening?" It's like, oh, I cut some corners here, or I used to put in the work like this, and now I'm not. Same with a relationship, you know. Start taking it for granted, not, paying attention to your partner or, doing the things that you did to keep her, to get her. Now you can't keep her because you're not doing those things anymore. So then it makes it seem like, well, was this all just to, catch me and then you just stop? You know what I mean? It's like you
Mhm.
have to continue. But that's where the work comes in, and vulnerability too,
Right.
because you have to be very vulnerable to be able to, like you said in that situation, I didn't like when you did this. It makes me feel this way. So that means
Mhm.
you're opening yourself up to someone. You're making
Mhm.
it very clear, like, very transparent. And a lot of times we don't want to do that. It takes a lot to be able to do that because we don't know what's going to be coming back to us once we do that. Like, are we
Mhm.
ready for whatever come back? It may not be what we expect,
Mhm.
you know. And then how are you going to deal with that? So, with the role models I had, that just it plays a big part, and I find myself trying to emulate those things.
Mhm.
When I was married, I was trying to do that, and even in SL, you know, you let's face it, you get married, and those same things apply.
Mhm.
You know, if y'all was going out and stuff, or sometimes it might change. Okay, let's face it. Okay, because I know I'm opening up a can of worms right here. All right, and I know you just sitting back like, yeah, okay. After the show, sir. Um, but, but I mean, you got to keep in mind too. It's like support can come in different ways. It's not always going to be the same way it was when you first was dating either. People develop, people grow, and sometimes there's roles. Like sometimes, you know, one person is going to support the other person, and then they reach a certain level, then it's your job to do the same, you know.
Mhm.
And it's not even once you get to wherever this destination is, it's throughout,
Mhm.
right? Um,
Right.
so if you're not doing that, then that's where if you're pouring into me, but I'm not pouring into you, then what are we doing?
Right.
You know, I'm just taking advantage of, what you're providing, and how is that benefiting you?
Right.
You know, it's supposed to be a give and take thing. It is not a 50-50 thing. It never
Right.
will be. So that whole, 50-50 thing, not even the case.
Right.
Sometimes it's 60-40, sometimes it's 70-30. You know, my thing is, if it's 70-30 today, make sure you make up that 40% somewhere.
Right.
You know, it might be when you dead tired, but
Mhm.
other person needs to do this or want to do this, get up,
Mhm.
and be there, right? Don't just sit there and be all like, well, nah, I ain't doing it. I'm tired. I'm no,
Mhm.
because that ain't gonna fly. You only gonna get so many times that you're gonna do that, and then it's gonna be a problem.
Mhm.
So, in some cases, you don't even get a second chance. It be immediate, on blast, on site. You being told that you messing up. So, I
Mhm.
mean, it's that's what I would say. The second question that came up was, what is the biggest regret from your past relationships? Um, and I wouldn't say this is any disrespect to any past relationships, but I would say, um, to be honest, I wasn't true to myself.
Mhm.
Now that's self reflection. I didn't point the finger at
Mhm.
somebody else. I didn't say, "Oh, they didn't do this," or "Oh, they
Mhm.
said this," and "Oh, they treated me like." No, I'm gonna say myself because it
Mhm.
starts with you, right? So
Mhm.
I allowed all that stuff to happen. I
Mhm.
allowed those years to rack up. You know what I'm saying? I
Mhm.
allowed to put myself in certain situations that I shouldn't have in hindsight. But at the time, I was thinking, oh, I'm doing, if I do this, oh, she gonna love me. Oh, you know, it was all for the wrong reasons. And at
Mhm.
the end of the day, that's something that you can take away from so that when you get into that right relationship, you know what to do.
Mhm.
A lot of people talk about, oh, I lose myself and I lost myself in this person. And so that means that you didn't put much value on yourself first.
Mhm.
You was living on through someone else. You
Mhm.
was living through your partner. Their happiness made you happy. That's cool and all, but then what about you? You got to be true to you too,
Right.
So, you know, um I would say that the biggest regret in the past for me would be just that I didn't set the boundaries. I just went with the flow or I went with my emotions. All right. Most of us do that too. Oh, I'm so in love. Oh, the way she makes me feel.
Mhm.
Oh, when she calls and I think about, okay, yeah, okay, but what else? Yeah, that's emotion.
Mhm.
You can't build relationships on emotion.
Mhm.
You got to have a foundation.
Mhm.
So when those emotions go south and I can't stand your ass no more, that I go back to this foundation that we built this together. I think about the movie Martin and the thin line between love and hate. And that
Mhm.
scene where he was talking to the club owner and he was talking to, Martin was bragging about these chicks and how good she looked and all this. And the guy says, you know what me and his girl, whatever her name was, have, none of that is not worth doing anything with any of these women
Mhm.
because we got years invested in this. We've been through a lot. I know her crazy. She knows my
Mhm.
crazy, right?
Mhm.
So to blow all that for some minutes of pleasure or someone that's blowing your head up and you really don't realize that you have the best thing right there. I mean, I we talked about this. I saw something on Facebook the other day where the guy was like, I he hates being single because of the fact that the what's out there is trash.
Mhm.
you know but
Mhm.
you have to look at it where you have to look at what's going around. This is a totally different time too. It's a lot of things going on. So it's just like it's not the same. So if you have someone that you can invest in, someone that you can work with, someone you can grow with, hold on to them, right?
Very true.
Because everything that glitter ain't gold. That's for sure. You know. Oh, it look beautiful.
Mhm.
You know. You got this one package, it's all wrapped beautifully, the bow, and it got glitter and all this stuff. And then you got this one box that's kind of bumpy and don't have that whole look to it. Which one you gonna choose?
Mhm.
You choose the one that got all the glitter and gold, and you open it up, ain't nothing inside.
Mhm.
Is that what you want? You know? So that's what I would say. I would say just learning from the mistakes and just regret that I didn't. pay attention to my own red flags when they were there.
Mhm.
Yep. What about you?
I think you said it all, but I'm not gonna
Wow.
say I'm not gonna say I have any regrets because I don't. Because all roads lead to something good.
True.
So what I did learn in those relationships is I learned a lot about me. I learned a lot about my tolerance level, whether I have it or not. What I have it on. What is a absolute no is a deal breaker, and what can I live with? Because everybody's not perfect.
Hmm.
Um, it taught me how to be alone. It taught me how to value myself. Um, it really taught me what I didn't want, you know.
Hmm.
But most of all, and this is where I think it's really going to get people is because I've told you this. Relationships are a mirror of you. So whatever is going on in your life at that particular time, that person is mimicking back to you.
Mm.
And so if you're not confident enough, you're not believing in yourself enough, guess what you're going to get? The universe works the same way. It's no different in the universe than it is with a relationship because you're calling that relationship in by your thought pattern.
Hmm.
And so if I'm thinking a certain way, then, if I have certain ways of thinking, of course, a narcissist can slip right on in there and I would never know it until it's too late and then I'm miserable. Okay. So it's one of those things where, we've also talked, both of my father and my uncle always told me you need to learn how to think with your head and your heart, not one or the other. Sometimes your head can get you in trouble, and sometimes your heart is going to let you feel something you really didn't need to feel. So they have to work in unison together. And I totally believe that, And what happens is we may see somebody, like you said, oh, he or she's fine. Oh, he or she da 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 da. But did you pay attention to their actions? We
Hmm.
tend to want to negate something that we see and be like, that was just that time. Well, if you start seeing it 2 or 3 times and you negating it, the proof is in the pudding. It's right there. You
Hmm.
just chose that you didn't want to deal with that because it was better to be with someone than to be alone. Or it's better for me to share someone than to be alone, you know. And I'm
Hmm.
not talking about those relationships where, it's you have an open relationship where there's 2 or 3 people, 4 people involved, however many people, because you've already set that expectation. I'm talking about the expectation that you're hiding whatever you're doing from the other person and not giving them a chance to have a say in what they want in their life. So, all of these things actually made me who I am today and how I see relationships today. I don't think all relationships are bad. I don't think all men are bad. I don't think all women are bad, right?
Hmm.
But we just have to know what is for us. You have to know yourself. You have to really, really know yourself and understand yourself before you can say, I want that person or I want that person. Because what happens is once you decide that you want to get into a relationship, then it's not that you're going to lose yourself, but now you got another person to think of. Now you got another person to let them in on your life and what is going on. You got to be careful of who you want to share that with.
Right.
Because I've made those mistakes where, yes, I make a good living. I've been to where I didn't have confidence, ran into the wrong men. I was taking advantage of that early on. But that was a lesson. That was a life lesson for me. And so now I know what to do in order to protect myself. And I have no problem eating at a table alone, taking myself out to a movie because I value myself more now than to sit in the company of people that I really don't need to be in their company. I can be alone. And you know me, I can sit right in my house and be alone and feel okay about that versus having another person because I'm lonely. I'm never lonely. We choose to be lonely, right?
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
I think learning to be alone and learning to be self sufficient makes you only that much better for somebody else.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Well, I'm loving this session because we keep sending the questions in. We're definitely going to continue to, you know, address the questions as you send them in because that's great. And these two questions were really great. Look forward to the next ones in the next episodes as well.
Yes.
All right. Well, I want to thank everyone for tuning in, of course, to Paint Sipping Relationships. Thank you, Rain, for being here as always.
Thank you.
And we'll see you next time. Take care.
Goodbye.